This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. Find the right person for your business today at LinkedIn Jobs. Pay what you want and visit linkedin.com/MacVoices to take $50 off. This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, your solution when you need a virtual server in the cloud. Use the code MacVoices to take $20 off your first purchase at linode.com/MacVoices. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, this is our CES wrap-up show. Now, some people do CES wrap-up shows Friday, maybe Monday after the show. We do it a little bit later simply because we shot, I should say, so many videos, and it takes time to do the editing, do the annotations of them, write them up, and get them posted. So this is dragging into about the third week of just releasing those videos. So yes, it's a little bit late, but I don't think it's any less important to do a wrap-up show. And we also get to talk about some of the things you've already seen now that everything is out. That means, of course, that Norbert Frassa is here. He's the guy who followed me all over Las Vegas with a camera and microphone. We've now designated him Samurai/Sherpa because he has characteristics of both. Norbert, have you recovered yet?
I think I have. This is the first year I've been called Samurai, but I'll go ahead and take that. Yeah, back to normal. Back to normal. Got the CES through me.
Well, we should note that the Samurai came from a little piece of hardware that you brought with you this time that you didn't even tell me about until we were shooting. And I kept seeing it out of the corner of my eye, thinking, is he brandishing a sword?
Well, exactly, Chuck. As you know, I'm a very seasoned CES employee. I have a whole 2 CESs under my belt now. So learning experience from the first CES is that sometimes people don't notice that you're filming and tend to just wander out in front of the camera. So I had one of my old little selfie sticks that I had sitting in my drawer and used it as a barricade to kind of stop people from walking to the camera. And as soon as the interview was done, I put that little selfie stick back, collapsed it and put it back. So that's why I was able to be incognito Samurai at CES.
Well, it was funny because the first time I thought, because obviously I'm looking at the guest over here and you're off to the side. And I thought I saw something. And it's like, no. Second time, it's like, I definitely saw something and I don't know what it is, but it looked long and silver. But every time I turned back to you, it was gone. So it took me a little while to figure out what you were doing, but it is much appreciated. People get so focused on whatever it is that they're focused on that they will walk right into a shot constantly. And I know even in spite of your best efforts, there were still a couple that snuck through.
True. Yeah, I'll have to take my Jedi sword next year. So we'll see.
Yeah, I like that idea. We just got to get the sound effects on camera. That's what we got to get. So I thought it'd be interesting just to reminisce a little bit. It's been a couple weeks now, but talk about what we saw at CES, what some of our favorite things were, because we both come at it from different perspectives, and maybe share a couple tips for folks that may be exhibiting next time around to hopefully get a little more out of the news coverage in general and MacVoices in particular. So what were the highlight exhibitors that we talked to for you?
I think the best part of the exhibitors that we spoke to is that the majority of them had actual products that were either coming to market within the next couple of months or that were in the pipeline already or even being sold on Amazon already. So for me, you sometimes when you watch CES previously, you see a lot of CES and it's a lot of vaporware. Will I ever see that in real life? And I have to, tip my hat off to you because you did a lot of great work on trying to whittle down the vendors to vendors that actually either had products in the pipeline or actually something that would actually come through. So for me, it was basically the practicality of CES that that kind of stood out for me as you kind of digested. I know you mentioned earlier that we're coming out a little bit later than most people, that everybody wants to get their CES coverage out that day and get everything published as quickly as possible. But I think the way that we do it might be a little bit better for me, especially because you get a couple of weeks to kind of digest things and go over things in your head and kind of process everything. CES is just nonstop, 12 hours, 16-hour days that, we start at 7 and we don't finish till 10:30. So it's good to have a little bit of a breather to kind of digest everything. So I prefer to have a little bit of a CES wrap up a couple weeks after the show itself.
Yeah, and there are a lot of friends that joke with us about how many videos we shot and all that. But even if did I mention any names? But no. Even if I release 5 a day, usually our interviews are from 4 to 6 minutes. Now, there are definitely some exceptions to that rule, but that's kind of what it generally is. And my approach has always been, look, I want to walk up to the booth. I want to introduce myself. I want them to tell me about it, just like they're telling every other exhibitor, every other attendee. What the product is, what it does, answer a few questions, and then move on. The people that want to go to those booths and get tech support or get into all these details, that's just not what the show floor is for, unless you are there to do actual business from a distribution standpoint or a deal standpoint. Then it's entirely appropriate. But the idea again is to take the viewer to CES, since they can't go, and try to pick out some of what we think are the most interesting vendors.
Exactly.
You mentioned that I whittled it down this year, and I'd love to say that that was planned, and it really wasn't. My approach always is, you try to look at the press releases. Some do a really great job of explaining what it is that they're showing, and then you can decide whether it's interesting or not. Some do, honestly, a terrible job. The ones that crack me up are, I get an email from someone I don't know that says, this information is under embargo, and the Smith Company is going to be showing this dynamite new product, and would you like to see the information under embargo? Well, give me a hint, as to what, because there are literally thousands of exhibitors at CES, and there are a lot of them that haven't you and I would have no interest in, but there are a lot that we would. But you've got to give folks a little bit of hint about what it is you're going to be showing, because if you don't, then I'm probably going to blow you off and skip right over it and go to somebody that has given me that information. And frankly, if it's a balancing act between no information and even just something marginal, you'll go with marginal every time, because it's somewhat of a known commodity.
Exactly. And since this is my second CES, I received quite a bit more of the promotional emails before the event itself. And a lot of the, not a lot, but you had some vendors that wanted to actually schedule a meeting at a certain period of time and, meet us here at such and such date at 4:30. And, the reality of CES that it's impossible to keep those types of schedules. You're on the go. You might get stuck at a booth, and, trying to make your way across town takes sometimes 45 minutes. Even across the strip takes 45 minutes to cross. So give a little bit more of peak and interest of what it is that you want to talk about, and then when we get to CES, show the product itself in action.
Yeah, and we had a fair number of booths that, as we walked by, we said, "Hey, that looks interesting." Some of which we both remember reading the press releases about, and frankly, the press releases didn't look that interesting or didn't explain the product adequately. And then when we got there, it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then there were some others, we looked at the press releases, they look great. You show up at the booth and you kind of, you're sort of glancing sideways like, no, we're just going to pass this. We're not even going to stop. And so it's a bit of a balancing act trying to do it and do it right.
Yeah. Like you said, some of the best booths that we were able to find were the ones that we found just on a whim, turning a quarter and saying, wow. And we both look at each other and wonder how that product works. And we sit there and look at the product itself and, have an interview. And it turns out to be some of the best ones, the ones that are not planned as a product.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think both of us were really blown away by Twinkly, the Christmas tree or the programmable lights. And we're not going to review all the details of it. Folks, go back and look at that particular episode because that was just a fun one. And it was one of those that I honestly had kind of skipped over their press release. It's like programmable Christmas lights. Yeah, that's been done before. And what they did and the demo they did just blew us away.
Exactly. I think that was my last year. The big aha moment for me was the yacht. This year, the Christmas twinkly Christmas trees was my aha moment because we turned and all of a sudden you see this Christmas tree changing lights and turning into happy faces and the U.S. flag. So that was a wow moment for me. One of those put your chin back up and close your mouth.
Yeah, and that's the problem with trying to discuss some of this stuff because if I go back over all the interviews, there were things that were they all were interesting. I mean, frankly, I don't think that we published any interviews that maybe weren't interesting this year. Some of the spokespeople were better than others. Some were not as good as others, but everybody got the message across. And all the products, while they might not apply to me, I think were interesting.
Yeah, and really, you could have the same amount of videos on the show on MacVoices, and talk about nothing but iPhone cases. You could have 75 different interviews with nothing but iPhone cases. But I thought that the coverage that we had was pretty balanced in regard to different products, where we had some products that might not even apply to you, and some that might. We had office products, we had iPhone cases, we had screen protectors, we had products that would allow your older relatives to stay at home and be independent. We had products that were Christmas trees, things that had to do with the cars. It was just a wide array of different types of technology that it's not for everybody, but within the assortment of videos that we did shoot, I think that you can pick quite a few things for yourself that apply to you.
I'm glad you brought that up because CES, everyone had known it as the Consumer Electronics Show. And now they just call it CES without explaining what that means. And it really has evolved into something much bigger, and not just physically bigger, but much broader. It's a place where we went through what was the preview session before Unveiled, where they talk about the trends in consumer electronics, but just in electronics in general, and what is happening with it. And I know that in that particular discussion presentation informed at least one of our interviews, because last year we stopped at John Deere just because it was really impressive. This year it was equally impressive, but it got the connected farmer, if you will, got a slide in that preview. And it's interesting to see, even over a year, how the attitude has changed and the recognition of farm technology and what it means for us. It's evolving. I'm not sure if it's evolving quick or whether we're evolving into the knowledge of it. But either way, it's still very interesting to stop by and talk to these people.
Exactly. I severely doubt that any of your viewers are going to go out and purchase a John Deere combine. And if they do, reach out to chuck@macvoices.com and take a picture. But just the whole science of how food is being processed and how it is helping have the computer out there, and especially next year when 5G becomes much more prevalent, that you have drones that go out and film everything, and the combine goes out and does it by itself, takes soil samples and so forth. That it's just something that affects your life whether you realize it or not.
I'm pleased to welcome a new sponsor to MacVoices. You will be hearing about LinkedIn jobs in coming shows, and that's not only a good thing, it's an important thing. Hiring the right people is one of the best ways to help grow your business, but it shouldn't take time away from other priorities. With LinkedIn Jobs, it doesn't have to. Getting a job has changed. Finding good people for a job you need to fill has changed. And I don't know anyone who isn't looking for good people to make their organization run. With LinkedIn Jobs, you get candidates screened for the hard and soft skills you're looking for. That helps you make that hire fast. And I mentioned soft skills. LinkedIn looks beyond the work skills and puts your job post in front of qualified candidates who match your requirements. Did you know that a person is hired every 8 seconds with LinkedIn? Did you know that LinkedIn has been rated the #1 hiring platform for delivering quality hires? Now you do. I use LinkedIn. I don't know anyone in business who doesn't use LinkedIn. And that's why to find the right person for your business, you need to go to linkedin.com/MacVoices today. Pay what you want and get $50 off at linkedin.com/MacVoices. LinkedIn.com/MacVoices for $50 off. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks and welcome to LinkedIn Jobs as a new sponsor of MacVoices. Another aspect that I always enjoy with CES is the international aspect. Sure, we talk to plenty of people from the US, but we talk to people from Denmark, we talk to people from Sweden, we talk to people from Ukraine. God, I lose track after a while. Italy, I think, was in there too. Just the ones that are catching off the top of my head. And it's well, of course, China as well, naturally. I think there may have been Japan in there as well. But it is so refreshing to go into an environment like this, and you talk to someone, you have something in common, you shake hands, maybe you joke a little bit. And it just is another one of those circumstances that if the world could be more like CES, we would all be much better off.
Exactly, and don't forget the gentleman from France that recognized us from last year and almost tackled you as we were walking out of one of those booths there. Technology, I think, like math, unites us all, where we have this common thing that brings us together, whether it is a product or service or something like that, that it doesn't matter what part of the country you're from, we can have a conversation about what it is outline different countries that attended the CES, quite a few, and it's well done.
Well, I think Dave Hamilton did a calculation. If it were physically possible, if you could physically get to every vendor that exhibited on the show floor, forget the suites and all, just that. If you got to everyone, you'd have 28 seconds if you used every second of the show floor days that were open. It's just not possible. I'm kind of proud of the fact that this year I think we did our most ever with 77 different interviews. So it was exhausting. It was fun, and of course that includes Showstoppers, Unveiled, and PepCom, the press events, which definitely make it easier to knock off a bunch without having to travel or walk between booths. But still, it's a lot of coverage and a lot, and there's not one interview I think you should skip, unless you just absolutely have no interest in, say, security cameras. Then okay, fine, skip that. But at the very least, I think they're entertaining and informative, and you just get a general sense of where some of the trends are going and some of the innovations that are happening in products that you already own.
Exactly. Whether a product actually relates to you directly or not, sometimes just learning about that product. I know for example, for me last year, it was a deluge of vendors that we were able to see. And maybe throughout the year, you talk to a friend of yours, or you have a conversation with somebody about a certain technology, and you remember, that didn't apply to me, but it might apply to you. For example, there was a product that allows your elderly to stay at home, elderly parents to stay at home, and it might not apply to you, but your neighbor might have that situation, and it would be something that you would want to talk to them about, and show them what's out there.
And again, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's important for the folks that message me or email me and say, Yeah, but what does this have to do with Apple or the Mac or the iPhone? Well, okay, maybe nothing. I mean, most things seem to have an app now, so you got that connection. But sometimes it's just nothing. Sometimes just A, I'm interested in it, or B, I think it's important that you know that something is out there. And again, I find it interesting. I don't walk around, and neither do you, just trying to say, "Gee, I wonder if this is important. We should cover it." No, we don't kind of do it that way. We try to find the things that are interesting to us, and sometimes, the one gentleman from France was showing a product that had to do with art, and it was $5,000 a shot. Okay, so there are not too many of our audience that are going to be into that, but the technology is cool, and odds are they're going to run into that technology, maybe not as a user or a purchaser, but as a user. And so you want to find out kind of where it originated from and what can be done with it. So, yeah, not everything is necessarily Apple related, but as Apple people, we're tech people, and technology is everywhere now. And I think it's good to get a little perspective on it as we go.
I don't think, I think that's what the best part of CES was. It doesn't have to be all Apple related. I think we had this discussion during one of our breakfasts during CES of why we are Apple users, and all of us, or for the majority of us, are Apple users by choice. For my organization, I use Windows, 8 hours of the day because I have to. When I come home and throw the tie on the floor, I use an Apple product. It's all Apple products. Why? Because I want to. And that's how technology is. It's not about, the brand name on it, but it is how your life is becoming because of it. And I think that a lot of these products that we saw last year iterated a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And it'll be interesting what's going to happen in 5-10 years that when you see these products much more prevalent in people's homes or in people's hands or everywhere. It's just what it is. It doesn't have to be all Apple products. I think it's just a general sense of where the trends are in the industry.
You earlier, and I wanted to make sure we made this point, that you brought up iPhone cases, and that's kind of a joke. That everybody talks about all the iPhone cases, and we covered a few iPhone cases, just simply because they offered either something different, something new, a different take on it, that were genuinely innovative. And so if you just are out there buying an iPhone case, you may want to look around a little, because there's some really interesting people doing interesting things that let that case do more than just protect your iPhone. There's the wireless charging, but there are all kind of car mounts and mounts for your home and mounts for your shower and mounts for your kitchen. So don't overlook those just because it says iPhone case. To walk up and just say, oh, you've stamped a pattern in the back of this and you painted it purple. Well, no, that's not going to do it. But if you've got something interesting, we tried to catch it.
I think we did. I think it was OSnap that had a very innovative pop socket type of case that basically does everything except throw the kitchen sink. It's magnetic. It has a pop socket. It's wireless charging. You can move it around. It works on any other, attaches to any other case. So for me, I wasn't at CES to look for iPhone cases, but when I saw the demonstration of that, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that they could just start doing that now, and kind of opened my eyes to what's out there.
Yeah, and Shift Cam was another one that caught my eye that I want to check out, because as great as the iPhone camera is, the iPhone 11, there's still some versatility and some additions that you can do, and most of the time that means carrying something bulky around with you and having multiple pieces, and the Shift Cam integrates that together. So those are just thank you for OSnap too. Those are just two examples of things that. A little bit different approach, either something brand new or something that's just an iteration on something we've seen, but it just gets better and better and better. Yeah.
And the other one that was kind of amazing that uses the iPhone as the brains of the operation was the telescope by Celestron. That for me was like, it basically, you have this thing that's in your pocket all day long, and you can multi-purpose it to be the brains. So, when you buy a telescope, you don't have to, pay an exorbitant amount of fees. I had to ask you twice. I was like, is that really the price for that telescope? And you told me, yeah, that's the price for that telescope. So that's definitely on my wish list for this year. It doesn't have to be just an iPhone case or like a wireless charger, but how is the iPhone being used?
Great example. Which I think it's a tribute to go the whole way back to Steve Jobs and Apple. And they created this device. They didn't even know they were creating what it's turned into, but they designed it with that kind of flexibility. And the more sensors they added and the more capabilities, you have all these creative people that are taking and say, yeah, you've got this device that has GPS and it has all the sensors and it has a great camera and we could do this with it. And it's like, wow, where did that come from? So, it blows me away.
And for me, part of one of the most interesting parts is not just, seeing the 80-inch 8K TVs, but understanding how people think. I think that for me was kind of amazing, and how they come up to solve problems, and something that you might not think of. Somebody has a completely different take on it, and how they implement that, that solution. It's like, wow, I never thought about it but that just makes complete and total sense, that you're just like, why didn't I ever think about that? And someone had to come and show it to you and how it should work.
Yeah. Linode.com/MacVoices is where you want to go if you need a virtual hosted cloud server. Why is Linode so great? Because that's what Linode specializes in. They feature native SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and industry-leading processors so that your server is fast fast. Because you pay for only what you use, with hourly billing across all plans and add-on services. No extra charges for data transfer, no hidden fees or nasty surprises at the end of the month. Because Linode has a new cloud manager with an improved user interface, so deploying your server or servers is easier than ever. Because Linode has data centers around the world, including one just launched in Toronto and one opening soon in Mumbai. So if location matters, Linode has it covered. Because they have a large documentation library to help you get started and help you make the most of your server. Because Linode has 24/7 live customer support, so if you get stuck or have issues, help is just a phone call away. Because Linode has a ton of add-ons, so that you can customize your server with exactly what you want and what you need. Backups, blocks, node balancers, load balancers, and much more. So what do you need to take advantage of all this? Visit linode.com/MacVoices to get set up and to get $20 credit towards your first server. Again, linode.com/MacVoices gets you $20 off your first server. Check it out now and be up and running in minutes. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. To wrap this up, I wanted to offer, like we seem to every year, maybe some tips or thoughts on how maybe folks, the exhibitors, can get more out of the coverage that all the journalists offer at CES, including MacVoices. And please feel free to jump in with your observations. But the very first one that occurs to me, and I've been watching the stats of the downloads and the views and all that from all our different sources. And folks, in case you don't know, you can obviously watch the coverage on our homepage at MacVoices.com. But the videos also get uploaded to our Facebook group and page. They go to Vimeo, they go to YouTube. The audio goes to SoundCloud, and of course the podcast feed. So you won't have any trouble finding it. But the folks who will take that and share it to their audience, I mean, I bring it to MacVoices, the MacVoices audience, but all these other people have their own audiences, and they're missing an opportunity if they don't share some of these, and not just MacVoices, but any of the interviews or articles or write-ups that are done on your product. Your customers want to see that. They want to be informed. They want to know about you and the product. And why more don't pay a little more attention to that post-event always shocks me, because the ones that do push my numbers up, and that means somebody's watching it, and it's not just my viewers, it's their audience as well.
We, as your helper, not really part of any major broadcast, as your helper, we are there to see the products. You have a captive audience that is ready to see what you have, what new gizmo you have, what new service, what new product. This is your time to shine, where you have the spotlight directly on you. And I think that we do a good job of, focusing on making sure that they have their time to talk about their product and talk about what they want to say. This is where you have to put your best feet forward, get your best out there, have someone that wants to go out on camera, that wants to talk, that's passionate about the product. And like you said, after the fact, you have, without being too happy about the products that we put out or the videos that we put out, but I think we put out some really good products that they could share out and that really demonstrate how everything works. So take advantage of that.
And you sort of skipped over something there that we ran into. We did last year. I do every year, almost any show I go to. You walk up to a booth and, hey, would somebody be available to do a quick video interview? And I have to go find somebody. Or, well, I'm not media approved. I'm not media trained. And, so I can't be on camera. And it's like, how many $1,000s are you paying for, this little 10 by 12 space, if it's even that large? And you have somebody there that you aren't prepared to have on camera. I don't that.
Exactly. Or we saw a couple of booths that none of the vendors that we talked to. But you see a couple of booths and nobody's even there. It's just an empty booth with the product and the brochures there. I think that you are missing a golden opportunity to promote. That the CES is not about anything but promotion. You want to promote what's coming, what's upcoming. Kickstarter, whatever it might be. And if I had my product there, I would take full advantage and try to get as many people as I could on board there that know about the product, that are free, and like you said, a lot of times we would go to a vendor and we'd have to wait for that one person out of 7 people that were standing there to talk about the product. I think, why not all 7 of you talk about the product? Why does it have to be just that person on the corner there? So just more people that can talk about it.
Yeah, well, it became a joke, and as it does every year after about the 3rd one, where I walk up to you and say, hey, Norbert, would you be able to do a quick interview? Sure, he will do it, or she will do it. And it's like, Norbert, I'm asking you for the interview. Now, if I have no problem being referred to somebody else if it's more appropriate, but as you said, when there's 7 people there and only one person is allowed to speak for the company, that just seems like a huge waste of money and opportunity.
That's true. Or sometimes we would just get the deer in the headlights, like, oh, you want me to do what? I guess if I have to do it. Well,
well, we haven't lost anybody yet. So,
true.
I guess you could be the first. But
yeah, true.
The other thing I want to offer is to have folks make sure, assuming you have a website, and at this point, hopefully, who doesn't have a website, make sure all your social media links are on your website. Make sure that your press kit, especially during CES and maybe for the month or 2 after, your press kit is readily available right there, that it can be downloaded easily, so that we and I'm speaking for a lot of folks out there that I shouldn't be speaking for. I don't know. We try to go completely paperless, with the exception of business cards. We just thank you very much for the paper, but we'll get it off your website. That means you need to have it on your website for us to get it off of. So make some links prominent, or put them down in the bottom where in the footer that says press, and then have the information there. And by all means, if you can, try to have the names and maybe even photos of your booth personnel so that we can go back and determine who we talk to if we lose that business card or if we just, have a fleeting memory of who it is. But I'm constantly searching for company names on Twitter or Facebook. And Facebook is notoriously difficult that when you start to type it in, if you don't do it exactly right, it either pulls up some other company or nothing at all. And if I can't find you, I can't tag you. And if I can't tag you, then you don't get the recognition that you really should get. And maybe the purchasing audience can't find you as easily as you would like for them to.
Exactly. And maybe even hire one or two social media people after the fact to just be scouring Twitter, scouring Facebook, trying to see who's posting what about your product, and put some replies out there, some retweets or something like that. Especially if you go through the trouble of trying to figure out what is their Twitter handle or their Facebook link, take advantage of it. Free advertisement.
Yeah. And I will say that this year more than ever, because inevitably you go up to a booth and they have hired a PR firm and there's a PR person there from that firm that is not directly associated with the company. And this year more than ever before, the PR people have gotten smart because instead of just handing me a card that says, again, the Smith Agency PR, somewhere on the card, on the back or on the side or whatever, there's a sticker, there's a handwritten note or whatever that says what the company that they're representing is. And that helps immensely when you come home with a stack of business cards this tall. And it's like, the PR person that you thought you were going to absolutely remember who they were associated with has now just, gone into the CES mush that is your brain. And you have no idea who it is you should be writing to about what.
Exactly. CES is a blur, and there's absolutely no way that you can kind of keep up as you're going along, especially with the amount of videos that we did. So the easier that you can make it for us, it'll be the better for you as a company, as an organization.
Yeah. And if this sounds self-serving, folks, please don't think that we have all the answers and everything. These are just we're one poor little podcast that shot 77 interviews. We want to get this information out, and these are some of the problems that we see. And maybe we could be a little more efficient in some of our note taking and all, and we do our best. But I just don't think we're alone in some of this.
I don't think so. And for me, I'm always trying to get some constructive criticism. I don't want to work on the things that I already do well. I want to work on the things that I don't do well. So that's the information that we're trying to provide.
Well said. Well said. I know that it's only just a couple weeks old now, but I'm ready to go back because it is an exhausting week, but it's a whole lot of fun. We get to share the mornings and evenings with friends, and then we get an amazing amount of fun on the show floor, meeting people and seeing people you saw the last year, maybe the year before that, and seeing what they're up to, and it's just it's one of the highlights of my year, no question. Definitely,
it's a lot of fun. Like you said, a lot of work. It takes a couple of days to kind of decompress after the fact and try to process everything in your head of what you saw and what your feelings are. But after a couple of weeks, you start getting in your head like, oh, I want to go. I wish I had more time at CES, and I think. One of the things that I'm going to learn from is that next year I might just take a day just to wander around the show floor without any agenda and just see what I see.
Yeah, that is one of the challenges because we've talked about this before, but you have to approach CES with a plan. And our plan this year was pretty good, but it also meant that you kind of had to march. And, so we only had so many hours or so much time in a particular hall or in a particular area. And if there just was no time to just aimlessly wander and see what you might stumble across. And therefore, I guarantee you that there are going to be other media outlets that are going to do things that I wish we had had a chance to talk to. And that's sort of the beauty of CES. Nobody can do it all. So, Norbert, come back next year, please. It was too much fun, and we got to do it again.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Perfect. See, I think he's secretly Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
Norbert, I wish I had his money.
Well, yeah, there is that. What's the best place or best way for people to contact you if they have questions or comments about your part in this team up here?
I have my Twitter handle. It is at Norbert Frassa. I'm usually on Twitter and checking what the trends are on there. So feel free to reach out to me there.
Great. Folks, you can find me, of course, at Chuck at MacVoices or on Twitter or on Facebook. I'd love to know what you thought of our coverage. What were your favorite things? What maybe didn't resonate with you? What you would have liked to see more of? Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.
And there were a couple of videos where the light was just like shining right above you. And it was like, holy Chuck, wah, you just needed to have the angels in the back.
Nobody's going to confuse me with anything holy, Norbert. No question about that.